gentlemen, would you please be seated? Welcome. We'd like to set the stage for this evening's celebration. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, we'll get down to the real reason for why you're here. A lot of good booze and a fine meal. Actually, we're here to honor John J. Guerin, Director of Classified Advertising of the New York Times. Your host is the Association of Personnel Consultants of New York State, APCNY. This is the first of what we hope will be a long series of PI awards, that is, professionalism in employment. We also hope that this is the first in a series of Distinguished Award winners. To get things going in the proper light this evening, in keeping with the strong beliefs of our testimony, I would like to call to the microphone our immediate past president, Mr. Carl F. Denny, CPC, Carl Den Personnel, excuse me, for the invocation. Would you all please rise?
Dear God, tonight we offer our thanks for all that you've given us.
Your master of ceremonies for this evening's celebration is the president of APCNY, Mr. Ira N. Gottlieb, CPC. Ira is the president of a new firm entitled David Hertz and Associates. Although I've had the privilege of coordinating this entire affair, the responsibility was mine, but the collaboration, the idea was Ira's and Phil Fisher's. They are responsible for this first annual PI Award. Once the concept was established, we then had to look around and find an honoree. We had to figure out who we really wanted to get. Someone we had a lot of paying back to do. So all I ask you to do is hold on to your hats, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. It is my privilege to bring to the microphone your master of ceremonies for the evening, Ira Gottlieb.
Certainly the people at the Times know that Tom and Jack are very, very good friends. At least that's what Tom tells me. When we laid out the whole concept of this first annual PI Award, we were trying to determine who the recipient would be. So we talked to Tom, and Tom was assigned to us as a liaison by Lance. So we assumed that Tom knew who the recipient was. So we started talking, we picked the Heisman Trophy room and so on. And we went to Tom and we said, Tom, okay, we're giving the award. And Tom, blank-faced, but, Tom, red-faced in his case, turned to both of us and said, Jack who? Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to bring to the microphone for a little surprise that hopefully, Jack, I know you looked at a lot of these things that were taking place tonight. Hopefully this will be a surprise to you. I'd like to welcome Tom Burns. Thank you for that.
I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do whatever you wish to do, and then we're going to start our program again. Are we ready? It is 10:48. 10:58 we start.
Here to help pay tribute to all of those other advertisers with the really big, big bucks is the Executive Vice President of Equity Advertising, Mr. Stanley Boxer.
Personal and business commitments prevented my associates from being here tonight. I represent them all and consider it an honor to be present at this testimonial dinner for Jack Guerin. We are now celebrating our 60th year in business, so we feel it appropriate to consider ourselves expert in commenting about this evening's guest of honor. To us, the New York Times is not a corporate conglomerate, but a person who in its everyday activities is seeking perfection. It is a person who is fair, innovative, imaginative, always having an open door, always genuinely interested to listen and solve a problem. So this evening, all of us at Equity Advertising Agency salute you, Jack Guerin, as the person who makes the New York Times a person.
Sitting at my table is the Senior Vice President of Advertising. I'd like to have a warm welcome for Lance Primus.
Ira, can I read your notes here? It says, I see that. It said nice things here about me. Very quickly, because the night is running late and we want to move on. On behalf of the company, we're very delighted to have Absinthe, if I can say that phrase, honor one of the people that we consider key to the organization, responsible for our success in many ways. And the fact that a lot of our colleagues were here tonight love the fact that somebody else is sticking it to Jack publicly. We do it all the time inside. It's great to see it done in a public forum. I think Jack's record in making the classified department kind of pay the bills around the New York Times have been long stated and addressed. I'd like to just spend a minute just telling you about the things that Jack has done that probably don't get much recognition. Most of us in this room, at one time or another, have either worked for or worked with Mr. Guerin. Unpublicly stated is Jack's tremendous ability to develop young salespeople into the future of what our organization represents. We feel so strongly about that. We really have committed his organization and his people to be the starting point for all of the talent that the advertising department represents. So the people who are here tonight, in a very great sense, know Jack from lots of different points of view. There are a handful of us who have worked together with Jack a long, long time. And the one measure, the one word I think comes to mind is consistency. It's a privilege for us to have a chance to enjoy a night dedicated to somebody that we feel so strongly about, so committed to, and feel so much affection for, who day after day produces hundreds of millions of dollars for the organization and provides us with the talent to keep the organization running ahead. I think tonight's an appropriate night also because it is my belief that tomorrow, January 8th, that edition of the New York Times will result in an all-time record for recruitment advertising. I believe when you total the Sunday business section and the recruitment advertising running in the Review of the Week, that totals something like 425 columns. All of you know the rate, the modest rate we get for that advertising, so you have some measure. More significantly, I think, and I do mean this, Section 9, which we all know and love, will be 48 pages tomorrow with 401 columns of advertising. My guess is that 830 some odd columns of help-wanted advertising in one edition of the New York Times has never occurred before. So I think tonight is a very appropriate night for us to single out Mr. John J. Guerin as the responsible for that. If we had some more time, we could parade a lot of people up here who know Jack and the inside dirt really well. But I would just say, in a very serious note, and we've had a great deal of levity and fun tonight in a very serious fashion on behalf of our colleagues, and we kind of do this all together. It's a great opportunity to be together, and we do thank you all for taking the time and an effort to come and honor someone that we feel so strongly about that really pays, it makes it easy for the rest of us who want to get excited about new ideas, because every single day what Jack and his small organization of 250 or 60 people do makes it all possible. Mr. Guerin, it's my pleasure to lead a round of applause honoring you tonight. As we have had a great deal of fun tonight, probably at Jack's expense, and some of us as well, I would add, and we'll deal with those folks later, I think it's time to get serious for just a second, and I'd like to introduce someone who we have decided really knows Jack probably better than most, someone who has worked with Jack longer than most of us have in a very close fashion. And I think to bring to you some stirring and emotional comments tonight on a very sincere note, it's my pleasure really to introduce Ed Kennedy, Group Advertising Manager at the New York Times. Ed?
Distinguished members of the Guerin family, wife Joan, 5 children. Distinguished members of the Association of Personnel Consultants of New York State. Distinguished guests, including a close friend of Jack's from Detroit, the distinguished Vice President of Public Affairs for General Motors, Jack McNulty, and his distinguished wife, Jean. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and Thomas Burns. Shame. Shame on you, Tom. You come here tonight with your wild music and your slides trying to evoke laughter from this distinguished audience. You know, Thomas, that you and I met with Mr. Guerin, and he asked that this be a dignified affair. Shame. Jack Guerin, I look you right in the eyes, and I make believe there are just the two of us in the room. And I promise you, sir, nothing I say from this lectern will intentionally evoke any laughter from this audience. And based on the mild response so far, I think I can give you a double guarantee of it. And you, Lance Primus, Senior Vice President of Advertising of the New York Times, the boss of bosses. You decide whether I get a salary increase. You decide whether I get promoted. Lance, you, in your remarks about Jack Guerin from this lectern a moment ago, were, as always, magnificent. My purpose this evening in these few moments is simply to tell you a little bit more about Jack Guerin so that you understand completely why this magnificent person is being honored by your great organization tonight. And I will talk a little bit about his business life, his family life, and his athletic life. Jack Guerin, when he was being considered for the position of advertising director, had many interviews with all levels of people at the Times, from the publisher, general manager, and most of the interviews were with Lance. And at the last interview, Lance said, Jack, as I've tried to tell you, this is a very, very heavy track you're being considered for. And I have just one other question. Are you in the habit of lying, cheating, stealing, doing terrible things to small animals? And Guerin thought about that for a moment and said, no, Lance, but I can learn. Well, we now know that in 1981, Jack got the promotion, and he was feeling just high as a kite. He was feeling like a king that day. Here he was in charge of hundreds of people. He went home, and as we can appreciate, that was a very happy evening in the Guerin household. They had a nice dinner. Later on, Joan and Jack went to bed. Sometime in the middle of the night, Joan woke up and said, oh, God, your feet are cold. And Jack said, Joni, when we're alone like this, you can still call me Jackie. Those of us who work for Jack and work with Jack know that he is a very compassionate and understanding person. He's aware that we all have imperfections. And Jack, of course, has had a number of secretaries over the years. His current secretary is the distinguished Anita Zeidman. But one of his former secretaries was a wonderful, wonderful person, but she had two imperfections. I'd rather not use real names, so I'll make up a name. Marie. But she had two imperfections. Number one, she was always late, and number two, she hated to answer the telephone. I was in a meeting at Jack's office one day, and we were talking, and it got to be at about 9:45, and Jack noticed that she had just come in. So he called her into the office, and he said, Marie, you should have been here at 9 o'clock. And she said, why? What happened? Well, she went outside, and Jack and I continued our meeting, and after a little while, the phone started to ring, and it rang and rang and rang. And even Jack, once in a while, becomes a little exasperated. He shouted out, Marie, the phone is ringing. You've got to answer the phone. And Marie shouted back, well, all right, but it does seem silly. 9 out of 10 times it's for you. I'm always trying to impress Jack with my physical condition. And as I was leaving his office that day, I said, as I remind him a lot, I said, Jack, you know, I jog a lot. I work out with the barbells and a lot of push-ups and things. I've got the body of a 20-year-old. And Jack looked at me very carefully and said, Eddie, you better give it back. You're getting it all wrinkled. But that's the way he is. He just can't help being honest about everything. He was a witness one time, and he swore that he was the world's greatest living advertising director. Lance heard about it. He said, how could you say a thing like that? And Jack said, Lance, I was under oath. For the benefit of you who don't know me, I should mention that I happen to be independently wealthy. Everybody's got to be somewhere during the day, and I hang out on the second floor of the advertising department at the New York Times. And the reason I mention that is because I'd just like to say that I happen to own a string of polo ponies. And I went to Lance one day, and I said, Lance, I've got a little problem. One of my horses limps one day and doesn't limp the next day. What do you think I should do? And Lance said, Eddie, on the day the horse doesn't limp, sell him. I did, to Jack Guerin. That was the horse you saw on the slide. You know, you might wonder, those of you who think about this evening after you leave here, how does a high-pressure executive like Jack Guerin relax? Well, the word we get in the office from his family is that when he gets home, he jumps right into a tub, and he stays there for hours. And sometimes he even fills it with water. Now, Jack also relaxes with an occasional Dewar's Scotch. Occasional. And when he has this Dewar's Scotch, it's usually in Sardi's after work on a Friday night. And at Sardi's, Jack is kind of renowned for his recitation of limericks. When the conversation lags, someone will say, Jack, how about a limerick? I was there, about a week or so ago, and he came up with this one. Here's to the Frenchman who loves his wine, and the German who loves his beer, and the Englishman loves his off and off, because it brings good cheer. The Scotchman drinks his whiskey straight, because it gives him dizziness. But the Irishman has no choice at all, so he drinks the whole damn business. Now, of course, that's not Guerin. He has, as I said, an occasional Dewar's, and he even came up with a Dewar's drinking man's diet, a 3-day diet. And it goes like this. Guerin says that if on the first day you take a half ounce of Dewar's at 1-hour intervals, the second day you take 1 ounce of Dewar's at how did that go again? The first day you take a half ounce of Dewar's at 1-hour intervals. The second day you take 1 ounce of Dewar's at half-hour intervals. Thank you, John. The third day you take 2 ounces of Dewar's with no intervals. Now, Guerin reports that even if you don't lose weight, those will be the 3 happiest days of your life. Well, alongside Tom Burns, there have been a moment or two when I thought I might be on the verge of asking you if you have any little wild music and a couple of slides left. Alongside every great man, there is a great woman. In this case, of course, Joan Guerin, getting now to the family life. Early in their marriage, Jack, of course, was busy climbing the corporate ladder. They'd had the 5 children. They were having dinner one night, and Jack said, you know, Joan, I know what I do every day, but I don't know what you do. When I leave, you're fooling around with the kids. When I come home, you know, you're laughing with the kids and everything. I'm in the business of classified ads. Would you write me a classified ad, you know, making believe that you were seeking someone for your job? So when Jack got home the next night, Joan read him this. And Ira, I'd like you particularly to listen to this and just give me an idea, if you will, when I'm finished, how many replies you think you might have gotten to this ad, composed by Joan Guerin. Woman wanted, to help in house with 5 kids, 18-hour day, 7-day week, sleep in, must have knowledge of cooking, sewing, medicine, law, child psychology, elementary electricity, bookkeeping, and sex. Must be strong and willing. Room and board provided. No wages. Ira, 0. Thank you very much for your attention, and just to be serious for about 10 seconds, Jack Guerin's going to get a lot of salutes in a moment. I'd just like to give him a personal one, if I may. I've said this to Jack many times. It's really fun to work for a real professional.
I have a note which is addressed to me by Jules Beitler, which was sent to him, that reveals how you got your job through the New York Times. I want to make sure all of your colleagues know and understand it. The fact of the matter is, you're in your 31st year with the Times. Is that correct? Incorrect. Jules, where are you? How many years, Jack? 28 years. Well, whatever. Which could be a record. But I can't say so without doing any other research and really talking to you. Let me read the note, and you'll understand why we're proud at this point. But also understand that it was not revealed to us until after we had already determined that we were going to set up this dinner. It says, just a footnote on Jack Guerin. He was placed by Dunhill Personnel Systems with the New York Times as an advertising space salesman. The last line reads, this information you might want to use for anyone who believes that employment agencies don't last. Are we good, Jack? Can we pick them? It's easy to... Cashel. Yeah. It's easy to brag when you have living proof standing right in front of you. Now, to be very serious, Jack, I'd like you to come up here. Believe it or not, Jack, this is the serious side of our testimonial. So, which curtain would you like to pick? Curtain number 1, number 2, or number 3?
Number 2.
Oh, good. Did we pay all this money? Want to hold this? We can't really capture the humor and fellowship that was displayed here today and just put it on a brass plaque. So I'm going to read it to everyone so everybody knows exactly what's on it. It says, Professionalism and Employment Award in tribute to John J. Guerin for outstanding services rendered specifically on behalf of the private placement industry and across the broad spectrum of the field of employment. His cooperative attitude, willingness to participate, ability to conceptualize, flexibility, good counsel, and his dedication to education, the highest standard of ethical practice and professionalism, have helped elevate the employment industry to new heights of achievement. On this day, January 7th, 1984, and signed by myself. Jack, I just really want to add a personal warm regard for everything you have done for the industry. Jack.
Perkins? Thank you. I'm deeply honored to be here tonight, and thank you for being here yourself. I'm deeply honored to accept the Professionalism in Employment Award. As the first recipient of this award, and not really knowing the format for this evening, but assuming that it was serious, I prepared a serious speech, and I have it here. But in light of the hilarity that we have just witnessed, and most of it at my expense, let me tell you what I'm going to do with the speech. Now let's get down to what I do best. Dirty stuff. I feel there are a few people here tonight that deserve and should be singled out for a special award. I'd like to do that now. Tom Burns. Tom, I'd like to give you the Guts Award. You know, Tom works for me. You heard him tonight. Tom, you're fired. Ed Kennedy. let's give Ed Kennedy the Toastmaster Award. As many of you know, Ed Kennedy has been a Toastmaster for like 25 years. And I have probably heard those jokes he said tonight for 23 years. There was one, though, Ed, that was brand new. I never heard it before tonight. But to you, the Toastmaster Award. Stanley Boxer. Stanley, I wasn't sure exactly what you would say tonight, so I had trouble figuring out this one. But I'm going to give you the 20% award. As you and I, Stanley, Sherman, Bernie Hodis, Bernie Kaplan, Mike Holt, all of us here tonight have talked many times. The advertising agency commission of 15% is ridiculous. It should be 20. You agree, I agree, and all we have to do is convince Primus. We're working on it. So, but to you, Stanley, the 20% award, we're still trying. Ira Gottlieb. What can I say about Ira? He's been a president of this association for as long as any of us can remember. But I think I'm going to give him the Presidential Award because within the last few months he's suddenly discovered a successor. And he's smiling a lot lately. He finally found somebody's going to take the goddamn job. Up until this point, I think Joe Curry's been smiling too. No more, Joe. Looks like you got it. I'd also like to thank some of the people who came here tonight from far and near. But seriously, though, I am proud to accept this award. And I truly believe that professionalism and the employment industry are synonymous terms. And I'm happy to have played even a small part in the professionalism of this industry. I accept this award, but not only for myself, but on behalf of the New York Times and my colleagues, with the understanding that you, our customers, are responsible for the success of the New York Times. Before I end this, I would like to pay a special bit of attention to one person who has not even been mentioned here hardly tonight, and that is to Jules Beitler, without whom this could never have happened. Jules, my congratulations. I don't think this is my part to say, but it's 11:25, 11:35. I think the band is still on for a while more, so let's have some fun. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here.